Nikki G TV, where we talk about your favorite movies, anime, and video games. Today we have a guest with us. He's my best friend, and you guys will start to love him too. Craig Shukri here. Today we're going to be talking about a few topics that we heard going on in the movie news. And the first topic that we got going on today, Craig, is the whole big scandal between Disney and Scarlett Johansson.
Ooh, it's getting juicy.
And I'm sure you guys have heard about what's going on with that. Scarlett Johansson is actually suing Disney over the release of Black Widow straight into Disney Plus as well, alongside the movie theater release. Now, Craig, you heard about this. What are your initial thoughts about the whole lawsuit?
My initial thoughts is that I am not super optimistic about the direction Disney is currently heading in under Bob Chapek. As you know, Bob Iger just stepped down, because this is not something that ever would have came to light under Iger. This would have been squashed and settled before it had to come to this. Clearly, Scarlett Johansson didn't even want this to become a public thing, but Disney gave her no option. Like, she did all the press for them, everything. She was all smiles. I think she was being a good sport. She didn't want to ruin, she didn't want this black cloud over the movie before it released. But it seems like from everything we're hearing, Disney ignored her to the point where she had no choice but to go public with this.
Yeah, and I think that's such a class act and such a tall tale for Scarlett Johansson. I mean, she did the whole press run. She went and visited all the place she was supposed to go, and no one had any semblance of this until, last week, in the beginning of the week, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, look, she was contractually obligated to, but if I would be there with like a stank face on the entire time.
Yeah, no one had any idea, and yeah. I mean, Disney's reply, like you were saying, Bob Chapek is kind of not a PR guy. Like his reply, where he was kind of just trying to say, I could pull up the exact quote, but he was just trying to say, like, how dare she try and, like, she's like putting people's lives at risk because of COVID, and she still made like 20 million based off of the movie theater release. But her entire stance is, hey, you guys are still robbing me money, and I'm kind of inclined to agree with her.
Right. Oh yeah, look, COVID is a very serious thing, but that's besides the issue of what they negotiated. This is the thing. Like, first off, Disney's response was so, like, just dumb. Like, they tried to flip it and do a personal shot at her, make her look like a bad person, and insinuate that her doing this means that she doesn't care about COVID and people that have gotten sick or unfortunately passed away. That's not this at all. The problem here is they had a contract in 2017 that they both agreed to. The theatrical window at that time was like, 90 to 100 days. That's what it was. No one knew COVID was coming. Unfortunately, this happened. But when something like that happens, then you renegotiate. What they did was they completely ignored her, like we saw Warner Brothers do. They corrected that, though, later on. And they said, they used the excuse, that the proper excuse at the time, that people were afraid to go, into public settings. But that's all fine and well. I'm all for that, stream from home, but you have to then respect the deals you had in place before that and make it up to your stars, because your talent is what makes you all this money, and they seem to have forgotten that.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point that you brought up, Craig, that Warner kind of beta tested this 6 months ago, and they were able to appease everything, fix all the contract negotiations, and everybody got paid accordingly.
It was not, though, without the backlash at first, because they at first did not try to do that.
Yeah, and then they fixed it. So you would think with like 6 months of watching out how that played, Disney would fix this, especially knowing that they were going to just release it straight to Disney Plus alongside the theatrical release. And I don't know, I think it was a big blunder on the side of Disney, and they have a lot of negative things going forward. What's your overall opinion on Bob Chapek?
I don't know a ton about the guy. I remember when they first announced that Bob Iger was stepping down and Bob Chapek was coming in, there was people who were like diehard Disney Parks fans. I don't know the ins and outs of the Disney Parks, but they were concerned because he was in charge of all the parks at the time. They said he was bad for the parks. Apparently, he's really only focused on the money aspect and how to save Disney money. Obviously, every CEO, listen, Disney is a business. They're always focused on money, but at least, with like the Walt Disneys and the Bob Igers, they knew we only have the parks and all these products because we have good stories that people care about. And it seems like Chapek is putting more of the business types in charge now of the studio heads. And I feel like it's going to get very messy for a while until, I think it's like all an ego thing. He's putting his own people in. And I think it's going to get messy for a while before it gets better.
Yeah, and we'll have to see how, the public reacts to this going forward. Do you think that if they stop supporting after a while, obviously there's going to be call for a big leadership change? But I mean, even the parks, they've been struggling a little bit. I know a lot of people complaining about like the pre-registering and not being able to get online for the rides that they pre-registered for and stuff like that. So we'll just have to see how that is going forward. But back to Scarlett Johansson and the Black Widow, I guess we'll move on to the second topic we were thinking about discussing for today, which is an overall review of the Black Widow film. We both saw it together. You saw it a couple more times than I did, so you're helping pay Scarlett Johansson in that front. But what do you think of the movie overall, Craig?
I enjoyed it. I don't think it was the greatest movie of all time, the greatest Marvel movie of all time. Sorry about the noise in the background. Someone's doing dishes. Someone's got to do it, I guess, because I don't. But no, I thought it was a good movie. It was fun. My issue with it, a couple of issues with it, was first off, I think they started off very strong, especially with that flashback sequence of showing the widows being, basically kidnapped. I thought what I initially was concerned about going into it, the family stuff, I thought was going to be like corny and not make sense because of what we have established with that character. But that actually was like the saving grace of the movie for me. And Red Guardian's by far like my new favorite character.
Yeah, he was fun.
I thought all of the, the action scenes where she first meets her sister and they fight, I thought that was great. I thought even, the story overall with the villain, I thought had a lot of potential. But I feel like the third act is really where it kind of fell apart. And I feel like they made it too big for who that character is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, she's more, I feel like a solo Black Widow movie should have been more like spy thriller, kind of like Captain America 2. And at the end, it was like, oh, there's big buildings in the sky. They went back to the same trope of, this is spoilers, obviously. They went back to the same trope of everyone's controlled by one thing, and there's just one, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like mass control. Instead of what I thought was cooler was that they were trained this way. There was no altering of, someone's brain. I think they've kind of went to that well too many times. And I feel like even the Dreykov character, he was great. I just don't think they really utilized him the way they should have. It was like, oh, I control the world. It's okay. No one would have figured that out by now. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I didn't have problems with Taskmaster for the same reason a lot of other people have problems. I don't really care about the gender swap aspect of it because they change stuff from the comics all the time. So certain things, if it fits the story better for the movies, it's different from the comics, obviously. I'm fine with that. And I thought it had potential with it being the daughter, but they didn't utilize her. So I didn't think Taskmaster was necessary at all, to be honest. But I mean, overall, I thought it was enjoyable. It was fun. It wasn't, it raised a couple questions about continuity and stuff, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, I have the Rotten Tomato pulled up here on my other monitor. It has a 81% tomato meter and 92% audience score. Now, obviously,
That's what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
No, as I'm saying, and people are, some people are saying that, this movie flopped because, of certain things that happened in the movie and because it's not good. It would have made a ton of money. It flopped because Disney decided to put it in Premier Access.
100%.
I went to someone's house who had bought it Premier Access. There was 5 of us watching it. Disney lost all that money because one person bought it, and now he has it forever. He watched it so many times for the one purchase of $30. That's why the movie lost money.
Yeah.
It would have made bank, honestly, if it had the biggest opening during the pandemic.
Yeah.
The only reason it lost money is because Disney messed around.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's a good movie. It's not the best Marvel movie by any stance, but it is a Marvel movie. It's got the Marvel recipe. It's pretty funny. It's pretty goofy. Pretty good fight scenes. I do have to say though, and I don't know if this is just my own opinion or what you think, Craig. It feels like a Winter Soldier repeat film, formula-wise. It's exactly the same thing. You go in and you find all the super soldiers, all the other Winter Soldiers, and it's the same thing with all the widows. They're all getting trained. They're all, toppling empires in the background, yada yada. I do like the whole mismatched family aspect, that this was the only family that they had, and I forget the character's name, but Black Widow's sister, she was saying that
Helena.
Yeah, the best part of her life was a lie, but it was still the best part of her life. That was a very emotional line, and I loved her character. I can't wait to see her going forward. I think she was a very strong point of the film. Red Guardian as well. I liked Dreykov's character. I think the acting was phenomenal. I think he played a very menacing, very scary actor. His motivation was a little weird. And Taskmaster, again, I feel like that was wasted potential. I don't care about the whole gender swap thing. I don't care about that. I think her being a female was more powerful, actually, because the whole thing was about Black Widows. They're all females. They're all toppling empires, killing people. They're all assassins. And the Taskmaster's keeping them aligned is also Dreykov's daughter, who was supposed to be killed. I think that was a very good story part, but she was not utilized at all. And if you removed her from the film, you remove her from the film, it doesn't really even matter to make a difference plot wise. Excuse me. It's what Red Guardian. It was, part of who Red Guardian was fighting, but that doesn't really make a difference. You could have literally thrown anybody in there and it would have been fine. But I don't know if I agree with the 81%. I think it's a weaker film. 81%. Let's equate that to 10. That's an 8.1 out of 10. I think it was less than that. I think it's like a 6.5 out of 10. I don't think it was the strongest Marvel movie. I think there was a lot of plot holes. I think the story was pretty generic, but overall I think it was a pretty good film. What would you give it a number-wise?
I would say this. The first two acts in the movie, I would say, is that I agree with the Rotten Tomato score. For me, the third act kind of ruined everything that they were building up to, though. Mm-hmm. I feel like they didn't have, like you were saying, it's kind of like a Winter Soldier repeat. I didn't feel like it was that until the third act, though. That's the thing, because they didn't really show their hand on what was going on until the third act.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe I give it like a 7.5. I really enjoyed it up until that point. That's where it kind of fell apart. Because even using his daughter would have been great, because that's like the red in her ledger. That's her whole troubled thing from the Avengers movie. And I think this movie also kind of suffered from being out way too late. It should have released during the time that it took place. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It came out like 2016.
Yes, very.
Then I think it would have been more fresh in people's brain, because that was a great storyline. They, like you said, they didn't utilize the daughter at all, but that could have been great. She didn't need to be in the Taskmaster thing. I think they felt that. I feel like maybe they felt like, we need someone in a suit. We got Iron Man, we got Captain America. These are superpowered beings, and people are not going to want to see this unless there's someone in a suit, kicking ass.
Right. But
I think that it would have been a way better movie if they actually scaled it down and just did it as is. Just these spies fighting each other. I thought it would have made a lot more sense. And they kind of, this is again going into a little, I'm reviewing again, but they kind of made her stronger than she was, like the car flip, her falling off that stuff. She wouldn't have really survived that. She doesn't have superpowers.
Right.
But I feel like they felt like it needed that for people to go there, and I think that was a mistake ultimately. But I'd give it a 7.5.
Okay, so still a little less than the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Yeah.
Well, you guys heard it here. What do you guys think about the Black Widow film? What do you think about everything with Scarlett Johansson and Disney? Leave it all in the comments. Let me know as we move on to main topic number 2 for today.